92%! That's how many people admit to engaging in self-sabotaging behaviors that directly undermine their own success. 92%! Which means, if you're listening to this right now, struggling with patterns you can't seem to break, you're not broken. You're human.
Timeless.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here. And I want you to know something right from the start. You didn't stumble onto this by accident. You're exactly where you need to be. Whether you found this during a sleepless night, during your commute, or in a moment when you're questioning everything about the path you're on, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not alone. I've been where you are. I've watched the people I care about stand in that same place. And I'm here to tell you there's a way through. Today, we're going to talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough honest conversation. Why we keep sabotaging ourselves, even when we desperately want to move forward. We're going to look at the patterns, understand where they come from, and most importantly, I'm going to give you something tangible you can do today to start breaking free. And listen, if what we discuss here adds value to your life, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe. Not for me, but because you deserve to have access to more conversations like this one. Real talk about real struggles without the pretense. Let me start by saying something that might surprise you. Self-sabotage isn't a character flaw. It's a protection mechanism that's outlived its usefulness. Think about it. At some point in your past, the behaviors you're engaging in now actually served you. Procrastination protected you from the sting of trying and failing. Perfectionism shielded you from criticism. Pushing people away kept you from the pain of potential rejection. These weren't random destructive choices. They were survival strategies. The problem is, what once protected you is now imprisoning you. I've spent years working with people who are standing at their own crossroads moment, trying to figure out why they can't seem to get out of their own way. And what I've learned is this: we don't sabotage our success because we're lazy or stupid or destined to fail. We sabotage our success because somewhere deep down, we're terrified of what happens if we actually succeed. Let me tell you about someone I worked with. I'll call him Marcus. Marcus came to me frustrated, angry even. He'd been trying to build wealth for years. He was smart about it too. He'd save, invest carefully, watch his accounts grow little by little. But then, like clockwork, something would snap inside him. He'd look around at his friends, his co-workers, see their new cars, their vacation photos, their expensive watches. And this wave of panic would wash over him. The fear of missing out would grip him so tightly he could barely breathe. And that's when he'd throw it all away. He'd start making wild, reckless investments, chasing that big payoff that would put him on par with everyone else. He'd convince himself he'd found the secret, the shortcut, the hidden opportunity everyone else was too blind to see. And within weeks, sometimes days, it would all be gone. Every dollar, every bit of progress. Start over at zero, again. When Marcus first told me this story, his hands were shaking. Not from anger this time, but from recognition. Because he'd just discovered something that changed everything. Those people he was comparing himself to, the ones who seemed to have it all. He ran into one of them at a coffee shop, and after an honest conversation, learned the truth. The guy was drowning, deeply in debt, facing bankruptcy. The wealth Marcus had been chasing was nothing but a carefully constructed illusion. We sat with that revelation for a long time. Because here's what Marcus realized. He hadn't been sabotaging his success because he couldn't achieve it. He'd been sabotaging it because he was afraid that even if he did achieve it, it wouldn't be enough. That he wouldn't be enough. That fear, that deep, gnawing belief that we're somehow fundamentally insufficient, that's the root of almost every self-sabotaging behavior I've ever witnessed. Maybe for you it shows up differently. Maybe you procrastinate on the very projects that could change your life, telling yourself you work better under pressure, when really you're just protecting yourself from having to face whether your best effort is good enough. Maybe you pick fights with the people who love you most, creating distance so you can control when and how you get hurt, rather than waiting for them to inevitably leave. Maybe you stay in toxic relationships because at least you know what to expect there, and the familiar pain feels safer than the uncertain possibility of something better. The patterns are different, but the core wound is the same. A belief buried so deep you might not even know it's there, that you don't deserve the very things you're working toward. I want to pause here for just a moment. If someone you care about is wrestling with these same patterns, if you see them standing in their own way, fighting battles against themselves, would you consider sharing this with them? Sometimes the most powerful gift we can give someone is simply showing them they're not alone in the struggle. Now, here's where things get interesting. Understanding why we self-sabotage is valuable, but understanding alone doesn't create change. You need clarity, yes, but you also need to take action. You need practical wisdom that creates real impact in your daily life. See, self-sabotage thrives in the darkness of our unconscious patterns. It relies on us not paying attention. So, the way we begin to break free is through something I call the awareness pause. And this is your mental actionable step for today. Here's how it works. For the next week, every time you're about to make a significant decision or take a significant action, pause for 10 seconds. Just 10 seconds. In those 10 seconds, ask yourself 3 questions. What am I about to do? How will I feel in 24 hours if I do this? Is this aligned with where I want to be 6 months from now? That's it. You're not trying to be perfect. You're not trying to never make mistakes. You're simply creating a small space between impulse and action. You're developing discernment. And in that tiny space, you give your wisest self a chance to be heard over the fearful voice that's been running the show. Marcus started doing this. It was uncomfortable at first. When that urge to make a risky investment would hit, he'd force himself to pause, to sit with the feeling instead of immediately acting on it. And you know what he discovered? The urge would pass. Not immediately. Sometimes it took minutes, sometimes hours, but it would pass. And on the other side of it, he could see clearly what was really happening. He wasn't making a strategic investment decision. He was trying to outrun a feeling of inadequacy. That awareness didn't fix everything overnight. But little by little, decision by decision, pause by pause, he began to change. Not because he suddenly became a different person, but because he started showing up for himself differently. He began to align his actions with his actual values instead of his fears. This isn't about achieving some mythical state of perfection. It's about moving beyond limits you've placed on yourself, understanding that growth isn't a straight line. It's a life reboot that happens gradually, through small, consistent choices that honor who you're becoming rather than who you're afraid you are. And here's something else I need you to hear. If you've tried to change before and it didn't stick, that doesn't mean you're incapable of change. It means you were using strategies that weren't suited for the real problem. You can't logic your way out of an emotional wound. You can't discipline your way out of a belief system that was built over decades. But you can, with patience and compassion and honest self-examination, begin to reset the patterns that have been holding you back. This is about finding purpose, not just in where you're going, but in who you're becoming along the way. Before we end, I want to remind you one more time. You are not alone in this. The fact that you're here, that you're listening, that you're willing to look honestly at these patterns, that takes more courage than you might realize. It's easy to run from ourselves. It's much harder to turn around and face what we've been avoiding. But you're doing it, and that matters. Here's what I know to be true, and I want you to carry this with you. The distance between who you are and who you're capable of becoming isn't measured in giant leaps. It's crossed through 1,000 small moments where you choose your growth over your fear. That's the work, not perfection, not overnight transformation, just one conscious choice at a time, building a life that reflects your actual worth rather than your deepest wounds. Thank you for spending this time with me today, for trusting me with your struggle, for being willing to look at the hard things. That willingness, that's where all change begins. If this conversation has helped you, would you subscribe to the U-Tree Legacy channel? Hit the like button if you found value here. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's standing at their own crossroads moment, share it with them. We've got resources, tools, and books available, all created by people who've been exactly where you are, who've walked this path themselves. No judgment, only support, only the honest truth about what it takes to break free. You've got this, and I'm here, walking alongside you. We have resources, books, and tools, all created by people who've lived this struggle and found their way through. There's no judgment here, just understanding, support, and practical wisdom for the journey ahead. You're enough, you always have been. Now go live like you believe it.
Also, keep the momentum going. Check out the next discussion in our series on the timeline, as well as another one of our recommended videos. Thank you for spending time with U-Tree Legacy. For weekly inspiration and free resources, visit utreelegacy.com. You'll also find our latest blog and a free 7-day guide to help you start strong. See you again soon.